Grab your coffee, mama. It's time for coffee, clients, and nap time. I'm Sarah Marie, and this is your guide to building a business that works for you and your family. Here, we'll dive into creating a thriving business that lets you be the hands-on parent you want while designing the life you've always dreamed of. So if you're ready to balance business success with family life and make it all work in a way that feels right for you, then let's dive in. Hey mamas, welcome back to Coffee, Clients and Nap Time. Today I'm so excited to introduce you to someone whose work I know is going to land so deeply for so many of you, especially if you're navigating big emotions, both in your little people and in yourself. Jacintha Field is a family and child counsellor, art therapist, and the founder of Happy Souls Kids, a beautiful digital wellbeing platform supporting kids aged 5 to 12 with emotional regulation, resilience, and real-life tools that actually work. What I love most about Jacintha's story is that it didn't start in the boardroom or in an office. It started at her kitchen table in the middle of all the messy middle with her own son by her side. She's built something so deeply purposeful, and she's here to share the raw and real story behind it all. I can't wait to dive in. Welcome, Jay. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me. I love this podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to learn more about your story as a mum in business and how that all started. Can you share what was happening in your life when this idea for Happy Souls Kids was initially born?
Yeah, so just going back a few steps in my background's actually in events and PR. I worked for some really big platforms. I worked at Crown, VRC, Melbourne Storm. And so counselling was never kind of something that I was doing. And then in 2019, 2020, we separated. My son started school and it was COVID all at the same time. And his emotions were so well beyond anything I could support at the time. Even though I'd done my own healing, I'd done yoga, I'd done breath work, I'd done meditation, it didn't even touch the sides for him. He was 5 years old at the time and he was a mess. You know, he didn't know how to process his feelings. And at that time I was like, well, how can I possibly support my own child? So I did what I do best and I started studying. I started studying as much as I possibly could. And what we started doing is drawing circles. So I'd get a piece of paper, I'd draw 3 circles and I'd say to him, hey, I know it's really hard for you to express how you're feeling, but can you put in the face of how you're feeling? So he would draw a little face for me. And then we'd talk about that. We'd break it down a little bit more. You know, it was sad, disappointed, frustrated. And so that was kind of how we started the process of talking about feelings. And then during COVID, I saw that kids couldn't gain access to psychologists. There was a 6 to 12-month wait, which unfortunately, Sarah, is still how it exists today. And so I started studying to become a family child counsellor, art therapist. I studied play therapy, and I'm a kids yoga teacher. So all the modalities while we were separating, selling a house, I was studying. I was studying to support my own child. I was creating a home practice so he would have the modalities at home to be able to support the big feelings and emotions that he needed. And I really just learned as much as I possibly could. 20 years ago, I saw a meditation teacher, and this all links in so well when you look at your life and you go, that's why that happened. And at the time, I was drinking a lot and going out, and I was masking all my feelings and emotions. And so she would just get me to draw. She would get me to text us just to draw and draw and draw and draw. Didn't matter what it was, didn't matter what color it was. She said, just intuitively feel into whatever is coming up for you and just draw. And that's what I did. And so that was the process of me being able to express my feelings as a human, which I then passed on to my son unknowingly through all of the work that we were doing, because kids can't always express how they're feeling, especially younger kids like toddlers. It's really challenging for them to be able to say, I am angry. You know, it'll come as like something thrown over the wall or a scream that you're like, whoa. I'll tell you a little story, Sarah. When my son was little, he wanted this toy from the supermarket. And I love all the feelings and emotions. I'm like, all feelings and emotions are welcome. They all have their place. They're all beautiful. They're all welcome. And I said to him, we're not going to get that. And he said, he would just, that tantrum, that tantrum. And I know people know what I'm talking about, that tantrum in the supermarket where they're just losing it. And you're like, what? Just all of this is about a toy. And I sat in the supermarket with him for 45 minutes and I just held up that boundary for him. And I said, we're not going to get that. That's not what we're going to do. We're not going to get that. I'm happy for you to express whatever is going on, because I knew it was so much more than just that toy. It was so much more that was happening within his body that he needed to release. And that was our feelings and emotions. That's how we express things. I let things move through his body when he needs to, even in the most uncomfortable places sometimes, such as the supermarket or a restaurant, even an ice cream shop. But it's important for children to really release what's happening in their body.
Yeah, I think it's so important too. I know, especially with my almost 2-year-old, some of those emotions are really, really big. And we
Oh,
just sit
yeah.
there and just be like, okay, let's just sit and let's cuddle. And, he doesn't quite have the words yet. Eventually he will, but those emotions can be really, really big. I'm interested to hear a bit more about the practical challenges as you built your business, especially by actively parenting and homeschooling as well, I believe. At that time, you were building it all at once.
Not homeschooling as such, but it was more like all of the work that we were doing through COVID. I was a single mum, doing all of the work with COVID, as well as I wanted to homeschool so badly. And we tried it in different elements, Sarah, but it just logistically, as a single mum, it's really, really challenging to find that. So it was a challenge. When you separate and you are going through the mess of separation, you're a mess, your kid's a mess, you're trying to build a life. It's really tough. But I just sat in with the purpose of what I was doing. I knew that this was so well beyond me, what I still am creating. I know that it's so needed throughout the world. So it was really tough. I was full time in practice, single mum with a child that had big feelings and emotions. Same with myself. I was still healing. I was enforced to do the driving back and forth to Melbourne to his dad, uh, as well on my only respite time away from my son, which was a 4-hour drive. And eventually, after 4 years, I said, I can't do this anymore. And I think one of the strongest things I've ever done in my life is say, I need help. Like, I can't do all of this, build a startup, have a full time practice, be a single mum, do all the driving to Melbourne. It was just too much for me. And I needed that family support. So we moved back to Melbourne in order to do that. And so I had to really sit with myself and say, what is more important here? Is it the practice? Is it the startup? What's more important to me? Because building a startup and building a business is tough. You don't get time off. It's not as if you can just sit back and go, oh, great, I'm going to have leisurely weekends every weekend and I'm just going to work on Fridays. It's tough to build a business because especially when you're so passionate about it and you just love it, like it consumes your every part, and you have to find that balance between being a present mum and building something. And I think that's what is challenging is finding that balance. My business is about Happy Souls Kids, and a lot of it is about the connection between the parent and child. And here I am building a startup with a child that I need to be present to. So that I think has been one of the biggest challenges is finding the balance between still being very connected to my child and building a business.
I'm really curious what that really looked like for you between juggling the business, motherhood, and your own emotional health. Because as mothers, our own emotions and not leading into burnout and not giving into mum guilt and all those big things that come along when you've got, I don't want to say conflicting priorities because parenthood and building a business shouldn't be conflicting, but they do feel like that a lot of the time when you're deep in the roots of building something bigger than yourself and
Yes.
parenting. So what did that really look like for you? Like, how did you navigate that?
There was a time where my business took over my motherhood, and I had to have really open communications with my son constantly and say to him and do a little check in and say, how you feeling? And he will say, Mummy, I want to spend more time with you. And that was such an eye opener for me to say, I need to stop. So we've come to a conclusion that on weekends I don't work, unless, of course, he's with his dad. And that's our time together. And so he will say to me, but Mummy, I think isn't the time that I'm at school enough for you to be working? And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I need like 5 times that amount. Like what we're building is, and he's my co-founder, we do this together. And that was a way that I found really worked, is that I would invite him into what I do. So rather than just like, sorry, mate, go watch TV or do whatever, or go play with a friend, I invite him into what I'm doing and, hey, do you want to have a look at what I'm doing? And what do you think about this? And then he became my unofficial co-founder, because then he's part of what we're doing and it's about children and he's a part of it and he's a big part of it and he's the reason it exists. So I think that balance really happened when I had those tough conversations with my child. It's not just with our partners. We need to have these tough conversations with our kids and do that little check-in of, what can I do to be a better mum? What are you finding really challenging? And what is it that you want? I'd also give him yes days a lot. I'm really big as a counsellor for yes days and giving kids control. And, it doesn't need to be as lavish as the movie. You can have $100 or $50, or it can be even no dollars and you just ride your bike everywhere. So it's just having kids being able to make those decisions and have that level of control on weekends is really important to them. And that helps them feel empowered as well. They're told what to do at school. They're told what to do with their friends. They're told what to do at home. How often do kids get to make those choices and have those conversations of, this is what I want to do today?
Yeah.
And so it really came with the communication with both of us and just having, crystal clear, open communication, which you don't really think to do with your kids, but that's certainly worked best in my work.
I've found the same with my older two, because I've run businesses since they were little and they're 12 and 14 now. And I still make an effort to, on school holidays, what are the things you want to do these school holidays? And, we'll work that around my work. So Tuesday's going to be a work day, but Wednesday it's, your day, and Thursday it's your brother's day, and Friday I'm going to do another work day. And I find that really helps them feel like they have specified time where they know that they're the sole person, like what they want matters in that moment. And therefore that's really worked for us as a family. So I really love that idea of, checking in with them and actually saying, okay, what do you need from me right now? What's your priority? And I'll certainly do the same as my toddler gets older and can actually verbalize a little bit more what he needs from me when I'm working. So I really love that you recognize that and were able to have those conversations with your son. And I really love that you invited him in to co-found it, because a lot of mums don't think of it like that. They just, I'm building a business. So that's a really beautiful connection then that you've created with him to do that together. So he feels invested in what you're doing and what you're achieving. So I really, really think that's an amazing lens to look at it through as well.
Yeah. But it's the connection piece starts early. We really need to give kids a voice even as toddlers, even when they're younger years. It's really important that, remember when my son would do Lego when he was 2 or 3, and he'd say, Mummy, you do it. And I would always say, I think you've got it, mate. I'm right here with you. I'm right here to help you. I've got you, but I think that you've got this. And that gave him that form of sense of empowerment, even from a young age, that he'd get frustrated, he'd get disappointed, he'd get angry, but I was right there with him in it. And then over time, he was just so empowered, because I think often we try and do too much for our kids, when if we let them lead, our job as a parent isn't to control our children, it's to guide them. And so the more that we can get our kids to do for themselves, that more that helps that empowerment. So when they do get older, they can say, oh, Mummy, I need this, because you supported them in their earlier years.
Yeah, I think it's a very important thing for us as mums of toddlers and younger kids to remember. You mentioned when we spoke earlier that many emotional tools are only introduced after a crisis. So why do you believe it's important to reach our kids before they get to that point?
When a child is dysregulated, so when they're having those big feelings and emotions, when they've got those tantrums, emotional releases as we call them, they can't hear you. They can't hear you in that moment. So if you say, just breathe, just breathe, just breathe, they are on a different planet. So that's not the time to be able to have these conversations with a child and to be able to teach them the regulation pieces. A really great one when my son was, 2 or 3 is we did Cosmic Kids. Love Cosmic Kids. It's so much fun and the joy and the connection piece there. But it gets them to teach them to connect to their breath. So we want to teach children that their body is like an air conditioner. They all have an air conditioner that they can go to at any time. So when their body's feeling really hot and they're really angry, they can start using their breath. But those lessons don't happen in the dysregulated moments. They happen when you're regulated. So we want to really teach children what to do. And oh my gosh, parents get so frustrated when I talk about this, but slime is one a really great thing that we can do with our children. As soon as I say it, you should see parents' faces. They're like, what? Parents don't like slime because parents don't like mess, and that comes from our parents. Like, we have to have this perfect household. The healing with kids is in the mess, and it's
Mm.
hard. It's in the paint everywhere. It's in the sand. It's in the slime. And so when I started my practice as a therapist, I had to work through my own stuff because I was like, kids would come in and my whole house was just a schmozzle. And at the start, I was like, oh, this is really big. And then as I saw the therapeutic process and I trusted it, I saw how much kids just need that release.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's in the mess. Slime, you're like moving the slime through your body. That's such a great self-regulation practice for children. Or if you don't like slime, getting a sand tray or even using shaving cream. Like, use that messiness. You can have a space in your house because that's what kids need is they need to be able to have a safe space where they can move things through their body.
It's such an important reminder because I think even as adults, we also need that as well. Like the ability to tactilely move and create and move our own emotions through. So I think that relates a lot to us as mums as well.
It
Be-
does. Like, why do we find mess so challenging?
I think you're right. I think it has come through from the generations that,
Yeah.
to keep the mess to the minimal.
I
And
know
I
when my
know,
mum comes over, like, I, clean my house tenfold when she's over because I'm like, "Oh, mum's coming. She's gonna judge me. She's gonna judge my house." And I've had to just learn to just say, "Hey, we live in a messy house sometimes, and that's okay."
yeah, I know I personally have a no slime rule in the house because my eldest did put slime through a curtain once, but we have found there are some amazing other slime-based tactile, especially when you're divergent kids at the moment that feel and look and touch
Yeah.
like slime but don't stick like slime. So we've been able to find some other compromises within the family.
Kinetic sand is another good one. You can just get it from Kmart, kinetic sand. It's a really great one to move things through your body and yeah, but it's also, Sarah, having boundaries. We've got to have boundaries. You can't use the slime on the couch, but you can use it on the kitchen table, or we only have slime outside, or we only have sand outside. So it's okay to sit in with those boundaries.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I'd really love to hear more about the role of storytelling and creativity and play have with kids in healing and resilience because we all want our kids to grow up to be amazing, whole human beings. So how does that work?
First of all, it starts with us. If we try and be the perfect mum, the perfect dad, the perfect carer, if we try and put those shield on and never let our kids see or feel that we have emotions, then they're going to feel that they can't have emotions either. So the first place we need to start is with us and be really honest with our kids. Like, if you're having a really bad day or you've got something going on or something was frustrating you or it was annoying you, it's okay to say that. Oh, I had such a frustrating day today. Like, something happened and I was so disappointed. "Oh, and what did you do, Dad? What did you do, Mum? Oh, I took some really deep breaths and I went outside for a walk and I just cleared my head and it made me feel really good." And what we call this is mirroring behavior. So first of all, it starts with us. When it comes to play therapy, when a child will come in, I will say, I want every part of you here. I want every single part of you here. And so every part of them is welcome in that therapeutic process. And with play therapy, it is not a guided. I mean, we can definitely have things there if we need to work on something in particular, but that is a child's space to have full control, where they get to come in and you'll say, what do you want to do today? And so they get to choose what they want to do. How often does that happen with a child where somebody will say, here you go, full range, do whatever you want? It just doesn't. It doesn't. That control doesn't come easily. So then there'll be different things set up in the room, whether that's slime, whether that's sand trays, whether that's karaoke. We go outside, we play games, we're in nature. Hide and seek is a really big one with kids. Have you played hide and seek recently, Sarah?
Not physical hide and seek. We do a lot of peekaboo. Obviously,
Oh.
my little one's not quite 2, so we haven't quite got to that concept, but we do a lot of peekaboo.
And
Coming up.
peekaboo is amazing. But the feeling you get when you do hide and seek, like as an adult, I'm just like, oh my gosh, that feeling is like butterflies when somebody's coming to find you. So you can understand why children love it. You can completely understand why they really love these modalities because you're like, oh, that feeling, that butterfly feeling. And so this is, as a therapist, it's really working within the child's window of tolerance and working because they know what they need. A child knows what they need. We as adults are the ones that actually put a block around it. We're usually the ones that say, don't do that, don't go there, don't do this. But a child actually knows deep inside what they need. And so in the therapeutic process, they have full control.
I love
And
that.
so it's beautiful to be able to, as a therapist, really, and then we talk to the parents about what a child might need or how things are going at home. And instantaneously, we see some big changes with children because they're feeling seen, they're feeling heard, they're feeling valued. And so then we can invite the parent in to enjoy us and have that connection piece with us as well, because a lot of it, Sarah, comes down to that connection piece of parent child. That's what we want. But with
Mm.
inflation, everyone's working, we're trying to pay mortgages, we've got households to run, and the kids are the ones that are getting forgotten about.
That hits home for me because running a business, we very often just put our heads down, bums up, focus on building the business, and quite often do forget that our kids do need that connection. I'm interested to hear a bit more about letting go of the pressure to parent right. You said at the start of what we were just talking about that we need to model and mirror that behaviour. So parenting right, I think all of us want to parent right. I think that's where a lot of mum guilt comes in because we want to be perfect. We want to do it right. What has helped you make the shift away from letting go of that pressure?
Oh, this is a big one for me. I've always had that perfect mentality and everything needs to be perfect and everything needs to be good. And I want to be the perfect parent and nothing can be wrong. I remember like even at my son's birthday parties, they had to be perfect. Everything had to be the perfect water bottles with the connection. And this had to be, I made everyone so stressed because I wanted everything perfect. And I made everyone around me was just like, whoa, she's just a lot. So I had to work on myself and I had to learn compassion for myself. I've got a 21-day self-love program that I've written. And funnily enough, I wrote it before I separated. And I had to really dive deep into that after I separated because we're not perfect. We are perfectly imperfect the way that we are. And we're never going to get perfect. People don't want you to be perfect. They just want you to be you. So the first person that we really need to love is ourselves. So, Sarah, if I said to you, who do you love most in the entire world, what would you say?
It'll be my children, my 3 kids straight away. I love myself,
Yeah.
but that's always my first answer.
But they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So it's ensuring that we light up our own cup first. And if we are parenting, if we wake up in the morning and we take the dog for a walk and then we have to play with the dog and we have to get the dog lunch, breakfast, and then we have to get the child breakfast and then we had to get them lunch and then we rush them out the door and then we've got a meeting and then we go here and then we've got lunch with this person and then we're running around. Oh gosh, okay. Oh, can you believe it? I got to go pick up my kid. And then they want something like, I want an ice cream. I want an ice cream. Then you come home and you make them dinner and you put them to bed and the entire bedtime routine is just an absolute nightmare because everybody's tired and grumpy and then you go to bed. What have you done for you during that entire process?
Mm.
You're going to build resentment within yourself, especially in the younger years when they're toddlers, because you don't get a lot of breaks unless they go to daycare, etc. Or you're trying to run a business or you're trying to work, like whatever it might be. You don't get a lot of breaks. But what about if there was just one thing during the day that you did for yourself? And that could just be getting up at 5 and having a cup of tea, or maybe that's going for a walk, or maybe that's going for a surf, or maybe that's roller skating. Whatever it might be for you, ensuring that you have space and time for yourself, because when you do, then you show up for your children and your partner and your family and your friends in a much more regulated state. Kids feed off our energy, and parents don't like it when I say this because we want the kid to be the problem. Of course
Mhm.
we do. But often we really need to go into ourselves and be like, oof, is there something I need to work on here? Is there something that's going on within myself that I really need to work on? And it's sitting with that. Sometimes it's maybe you just need a break. Maybe you just need to
Mhm.
go away for the night, or maybe you need a whole week away, or maybe 2 weeks. It's really you working out what you need within your body is really, really important, and accepting that wholeheartedly and knowing, "Hey, I'm really struggling right now. I've got 15 balls in the air and I just need to breathe." Or maybe that's getting your entire family into nature for a weekend so we can just clear the air. Or even just going outside and just breathing and just looking at this, like, you can just watch a tree and you can just even the leaves on the tree, that's a mindfulness practice, and it's so easy to do. Just look at a tree and you just witness what's going on. You don't think about things, we just witness. And it's so important.
There is definitely something about being out in nature. I have a walking pad for under my desk, and half an hour on that compared to half an hour actually walking outside. Outside wins every time to clear my mind, re-regulate my system, help me focus, all those things. And it's the same amount of exercise, but just the location of doing it. If I'm doing it at my desk as opposed to outside in the fresh air and in nature, I notice the difference between how I feel after each of those two different types of exercise. So nature is such a massive regulator of
It
our
is.
of our
Sometimes we
systems.
just need to go for a walk. We lived in Torquay for 4 years and we've just moved back to Melbourne, and I don't have that nature like I did before. I mean, with my startup needs to be here for the moment, but I miss it. My soul misses it. It I used to go out in nature every day, and in some capacity I still do, but not like before. So we try and plan trips away as much as possible just to get out of the city because it's just so busy.
Mm, absolutely is. I'm interested to hear what you would say to a mum listening right now to us who feels like she's failing. She's failing at it all. What would be your words of advice for her?
I see you. It's a very normal feeling. Feeling like that you failed is very normal. And what is one thing that you love about yourself? And that's where we need to start.
I love that.
Rather than focusing on how far that you've got to go, let's focus on how far you've come. Especially in business, we're so like, oh, the end, it's just so far, it's just so far, it's just so far. But what about if we look back on all of the things? So I would suggest writing everything down in these moments of frustration, in these moments of feeling like failure. First of all, sit with failure and say, hi, I see you. I see you, failure. A friend of mine just launched a book. His name's Charlie Goldsmith, and the book is Human Medicine. And it's about emotions and making room for every single emotion. And in that book, I won't tell you exactly what it says, but it is like, hey, you belong with us. You've got your place. And so it's feeling that emotion because it's coming in because it needs to be released. It really needs to be released out of the body. And as Charlie said, and I love this, like I've worked with emotions for so many years, and I think this is such a great, beautiful thing that landed, that emotions are like going to the toilet. Often if we feel emotion, we're like, no, not doing that, not doing that. Yep, grab our phones, call somebody, grab a drink, whatever it might be for you. But it's coming up because it wants to come out. So sit with it. Cry if you need to. Punch a pillow. Acknowledge the emotion and then let it release from your body because it's coming up from somewhere in your life that something's happened and it's time for it to be released. So give it space to release it.
A really big practice I've started with my kids is naming the emotions as well. So
Yeah.
getting them to recognize what those emotions are and naming them. And so I've had to start doing that myself because, as you said, we need to mirror what we want our kids to do. And so
Yeah.
my 14-year-old would come to me and she'd be like, I feel like you're angry at me, Mum. And I would usually say, no, I'm not. I'm not angry. But I
Mhm.
was angry. So I've had to remember, and especially because she's got autism and ADHD, she's very in tune with my emotions. I was a single mum for a very long time raising her and her brother. And she'll say, I feel like you're angry at me. And I used to say, no, I'm not. Of course I'm not angry. And now I say, yes, I am, but it's not directed at you.
Yeah.
And I've had to let her know it's okay. Like, yes, you are correct in what you're feeling and seeing in me, and stop
Yeah.
denying her that knowledge. And
It's
yeah,
okay
yes, I
to
am,
feel
but it's
angry.
not directed at you. I'm not angry at you. I am angry though. So very important to teach our kids to recognize those emotions and sit with them.
So a way to express that is even like evoke a conversation of, oh, you're right. I'm feeling really angry right now. How do you think I can get anger out of my body? And so then making it into a playful game, like, oh, should we turn the music on? Do you reckon we could like jump this anger out of our body and dance this anger out of our body? So it is naming the emotion. It's expressing that anger has its place. There's a really great series of books when I'm feeling jealous, when I'm feeling lonely. These are by Tracy Moroney. When I'm feeling sad, when I'm feeling scared. So I used to read these books to my son when he was 2, 3 years old. It's a beautiful collection of books just to be able to teach children that it's okay to feel all of these emotions and they're all part of you. And we need not just the happy emotions, we need anxiety sometimes to protect us. And it does start with that beautiful conversation that we can have with our kids of, I'm feeling happy. How are you feeling today? I'm feeling happy. Because quite often a kid will come home from school or kinder or daycare and you'll say, how was your day? And they'll say, good. And you'll say, okay, cool. So what I do with my son is I say, "Hey, tell me 2 things you liked about today and 1 thing that you didn't," because they're not always gonna like everything. So if we really engage in those conversations or say, "Hey, could you elaborate for me a little bit more?" and go into the inquisitivity of it, just to be able to say, "Hey, tell me more about that." And kids don't like to talk after school. Do you know when they like to talk?
Bedtime.
Before bed. And it is our most frustrated time because we're exhausted. And that's when everything's quiet and they want to tell us about their day. And that's generally the time where we say, I'm too tired to listen to you right now. I need to go. But it's actually having those conversations before bed because that's when they've had time to process. That's when they've had time to rest. And it's inviting those conversations before they sleep.
Yeah. And that's become big in my family. My preteen, I still turn off his bedroom light at bedtime. And it's literally, I'll stand there at the door and he'll want to have a 5-minute conversation about all the things that have gone on in the day. For every other chance I'd had to ask him, no, nothing happened, nothing going on, nothing to tell you, Mum. As soon as I'm
No.
standing there with my finger on that light switch, oh, Mum, guess what? This happened and such did this. And in my game, this happened and I'm planning to do this tomorrow. And when I'm 25, I want to be a such and such. Like all the conversations come out in that moment. So yeah, I've definitely noticed that in our family life as well. But I try to take the time in that moment because we have a toddler and as I said, I've got my neurodivergent teen and he is that middle child. And sometimes he gets lost in the shuffle of the priorities of the business, of the teen's needs, of the toddler's needs.
Yeah.
And I just take that moment, I take a breath and I'm like, tell me more, kid. Like, tell me more. What happened? And
Yeah.
if I sat down on his bed and asked him, he wouldn't want to talk about it. But as I'm standing there in the doorway, ready to go to bed myself, that's the moment that he wants to take the time. So I carve out time in my day knowing that he's going to need that 5 minutes. But
And
don't
that's
tell him I'm making him 5 minutes because then he won't want to talk.
But that's where it starts. It starts when they're young, creating that safe space and that invitation to be able to have those conversations. Because if we shut kids down too much, they stop coming to us. So it now, especially as my son is 11, I have those big conversations with him. And whenever he says to me or something, his friends will play up a little bit, or he'll play up with his friends a little bit, I should say. And he'll come to me and tell me the truth. And I'll always say to him, hey, thanks so much for being honest with me. Like, we have a safe space here, so you can tell me anything, and I'm just here to guide you. So So then when he goes to the big stuff, when they get a little bit older, he'll feel safe to come back to me and say, "Hey, mummy, we did this." I'm like, "Okay, thanks so much for telling me." So
Mhm.
it starts from when they're really young of creating that space, but it's never too late. This is something I do wanna say to parents, like, it's never too late to connect to your kids. Open that conversation of, "You know what? I haven't always been the best mum or dad, have I? I haven't always shown up for you, but I wanna make a really conscious effort to be better. So can we work out how we can work together in this family dynamic? Because I'm so sorry for things that have happened in the past. I haven't always been my best self, or if I've pushed you away, I haven't intended to. That wasn't my intention. I've just got so much going on in my own head that sometimes I forget that this is the most important connection that I have."
I love that. We're going to wrap up in a moment, but I have a couple more questions I'd love to run past you. Firstly, what do you think needs to change in the way that we support mothers and children? And fathers, we want them to be supported too, but especially mothers and children and the support that they receive.
When I became a single mum, I would have assumed that I would have got a lot more support than I did, and that was quite shocking to me how many people just don't support you during those times. I think that there needs to be more communities where we support and love each other and we're available to each other. I think that there needs to be a lot more government support. Like, government will have funding for daycares, and we know what's happened recently with all of the daycares in Australia. And now there's a big petition going for parents to be able to have that money to stay home with their kids, because the whole thing with daycare is you've got to work to send your kids to daycare, and it's much of a muchness how much you earn. So I think the government definitely needs to do a lot more for parents in that capacity. Um, and I think we need to lean on each other a lot more. Can we have a food drive where once a week somebody will make food for the other mum? Or can we do something so we connect in with each other a little bit more and we support each other? I think it's really important, and it doesn't happen as much as we think it does.
No, I think community is a massive, massive love topic of mine because there just definitely isn't enough community. And, they say it takes a village to raise a kid, and we're in a time and a space where there is no villages that are holding people together and creating that. The very last question I want to end with is, what is the one piece of advice that you would give a mum just starting out in business?
That you really need to trust yourself. If the idea is coming to you, it's because it needs to be birthed. And you have all the capabilities that you need inside you to get that done. So it's trusting yourself and knowing that you know within yourself where you need to go, and you have the tools to be able to do that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jay, for joining me today. Are you able to let us know where we can connect in with you or find out more about Happy Soul Kids?
Yeah, absolutely. So Happy Souls Kids, my website is happysoulskids.com. We're building an app at the moment, which is a gamified app utilizing and leveraging athletes to teach kids the art of mindfulness and self-regulation. So if you would like to be one of our beta testers, we want parents, we want feedback. It's really 5 to 12, but we're still happy to have feedback from other parents too, because the more feedback that we can get, the better. So just send me an email at hello@happysoulskids.com. And then I have my personal Instagram, which is Jacintha Field. It's a bit of a tongue twist on my name, so everyone calls me Jay. It's Jacintha. There's a PH on the end, just like Samantha, and then Field. And then we've got TikTok and Instagram for Happy Souls Kids too. So, and then LinkedIn. You can find me anywhere.
I'll pop all the details into the show notes. Thank you so much again, Jacintha. I've had such a wonderful chat with you today.
Well, beautiful, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me on Coffee, Clients and Naptime. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another mum who's ready to build their dream life. You can also join our Facebook page or Instagram to stay connected every day of the week. The link is in the show notes. Just remember, you've got this, and I'm here to help every step of the way.